Jim, it's great catching up again. Sounds like we both got pulled out of retirement, huh?
Well, I tell people all the time, Woody, that I flunked retirement, and it sounds like you did as well.
Yeah, I wasn't very good at it. Forgive me if I call you coach during this conversation. I'll try to pay you the respect of your new title. But if you would, Jim, walk us through real quick how this came down. It almost seems like this fell into your lap out of the blue.
Well, it really was. I worked very closely with Governor DeWine back when I was president at Youngstown State University, and especially through COVID and all that, with all the various things we had to kind of learn on the run, and State was very supportive with all of our needs and our students' needs, and then started working with him some on some education and workforce initiatives, and we were talking back and forth about some things, and he called on January 31st and said he was going to be in the area. Was I in Ohio? And I said, well, I had been in Florida for a couple of weeks, but I was back in Ohio, and so he said he wanted to stop by, that he had an idea. When he stopped by, he had quite an idea. And so I asked Ellen what she thought, and she said, well, it sounds like God has more work for you, and I know how you feel about the governor, and I know how you feel about the state of Ohio. Go for it.
Wow.
So here we are.
How would you characterize your first couple months in office?
It's really been good. Every day you're learning. And, whenever you get to meet a whole bunch of new people, it's fun. Staff is tremendous, and just so many people that are passionate about what they do. And I think every private citizen should get to see behind the curtain in terms of just how complex and enormous the needs are of an entire state of 12 million people and very diverse state. It's just been a lot of fun to learn about the needs and hopes and expectations of everyone across the board.
Ohio's fine Lieutenant Governor and former OSU head football coach Jim Tressel, our guest here on 103.9 The Maverick on the ride home. Jim, what, if any, parallels might you be able to draw from overseeing a huge football program like OSU's, or even as the YSU president? How did it prepare you for the job you're doing now?
I think anything you do, you're a part of a team and a part of relationships that need to get built, and you try to find out what the strengths are of the people around you and what the needs are of the people you're serving. But it's just on such a larger scale. I had 100 guys and a dozen coaches for a while, and then you have 2,000 employees and 12,000 students, and now all of a sudden, I'm working with 12 million people and a General Assembly of a couple hundred people and agencies that serve the needs of Ohioans across the board. And so, but again, it's just relationships, being willing to listen and learn, because every day is new, and then seeing if you can be helpful.
What has surprised you most in your new role?
Probably the pace at which the conversation changes. Like one day you might be working on the bird flu epidemic affecting our poultry farmers in Western Ohio, and then the next day you're talking about energy policy, and the next day you're talking about foster care, and the next day you're talking about drug prevention, and then you might be the next meeting might be corrections and education, and so just how fast everything changes throughout the course of the day, and staying on top of, after each time you have a meeting, now what are the next steps so that the people of the state of Ohio are safe and they have opportunities and, all those things. So it's just been kind of the pace and the breadth of everything we deal with.
Talking to Ohio's fine Lieutenant Governor Jim Tressel here on the ride home on 103.9 The Maverick. Is there a strength versus a weakness coming out of your time in athletic and university administration? Where's your blind spot? Where do you have the most opportunity to learn and grow? And what do you think you're really doing well at?
Well, I'll go with the blind spot first. It's funny. I asked that question to one of our longtime team members of the governor's team, and I said, I've been here a short time. I've only seen what I've seen. What is my blind spot? And I used that phrase. What is it that I need to be aware of? And her response was along the lines of, you can't be naive to some of the things that are a part of the system, some of the things that have been the way we've done things for years. And so, sometimes there's reasons why we're going in this direction or that direction. And, just being naive to the whole picture, especially when you're on the job as short as I was. And that's helped me try to open my eyes wider and have more peripheral vision so I have less blind spots.
How about a strength? What do you think you've really brought to the table and been able to utilize most quickly?
I think that willingness to listen and problem solve. I'm trying to bring a sense of urgency to the table because the needs of everyone are so great. Governor DeWine and his team have done such a great job for 6 years, but we only have 2 years left to make even more impact and make life better for Ohioans and opportunities taken advantage of and so forth. So I think I've brought a listening and a connecting, collaborative conversation, but also I'm still in coach mode. In fact, I told folks the other day in a meeting, I said I spent 25 years as the head coach making a decision every 25 seconds, and then I got into higher education, and it seemed like every 25 months, as slow as that moved. And I think government is somewhere in between, and I want to get it a little closer to the 25 seconds.
Jim, and you kind of teed me up for this final question before I let you go. You mentioned you only have 2 years left. I would love to offer you the platform now here on the Maverick and my show to go ahead and announce that you are going to seek the nomination for governor upon Governor DeWine's stepping away, if you wish.
You used to always ask me before games or before seasons, are we going to be the Big Ten champs?
Yeah.
Or are we going to beat Michigan or whatever?
I did.
And you know how I answered. I answered that I'm focused on today's practice, focused on trying to get as good as we can get today, and tomorrow will take care of itself.
That hasn't changed about you, has it, Coach?
It has not. It has not.
Well, let me ask you this.
It served me well.
You're right, and that's a fine answer. But let me ask you this. When, if you ever do choose to do so, how close to the race do you think you might make that announcement?
Oh, gosh. You know what? I have not even had a conversation with the governor about what the mechanics of those kinds of things are or timetables. So quite honestly, I have no idea.
Well, that's about as honest an answer as I could get. Jim Tressel, thank you so much for joining us here. And I want you to know the 8x11 photograph that you autographed when I first came back to Columbus and said, "Welcome home," I still have hanging in my office. That's how much it meant to me.
Well, I appreciate it. Now, my hair was not as gray as it is today.
Yeah, well, I got a little more salt in my pepper, too.
I hear you.
All right.
Well, great to hear your voice, and glad that you flunked retirement.
Thank you. All right. Thanks for your time, Jim.
My friend. Yep, sir. Take care.